Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today, I will be welcoming a legend in the world of sketch and improv comedy, and I don't say that lightly. I mean, this guy was like right at the forefront of the sketch and improv comedy scene in San Francisco with playing the title role of Bullshot Crummond, a hilarious, irreverent satire on, British comedy, Monty Python style comedy. It was a parody of Bulldog Drummond, the old English, detective story, comic books, and they're combining it with World War II, and it was just so brilliant. If you haven't seen Bullshot Crummond, there's a movie of it called Bullshot, and there's a performance of it that was taped for Showtime that is available on YouTube. And then Alan Shearman, he went on to have a successful career as a character actor in movies like Stoogemania, Mortal Passions, Water. Him and Ron House from Bullshot Crummond were in John Carpenter's Escape from New York, playing dancers when Snake finds Ernest Borgnine in the movie. And he also co-wrote Shrimp on the Barbie with Ron House, and he also co-wrote 2001: A Space Travesty, one of Leslie Nielsen's last parody movies. And I'm excited to have him on today. So yeah, here is my new interview with Alan Shearman.
Hi, Tommy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Alan?
I'm very good. Very good.
Spectacular.
Right on time.
Spectacular. It's such an honor. Thank you for coming on today.
Oh, my pleasure.
Awesome. So, going back in time, did you fall in love with acting early on?
Yes, I did. I actually fell in love with it. I think the very first thing I did was probably about the age of 5. And there was the little class, the little school that I was at, they put on a show, and they did The Owl and the Pussycat, which is the famous Edward Lear song, poem, who went to sea in a pea green boat, etc. I played the pig with the ring in the end of his nose. But I remember looking out into the audience and thinking, oh, wow, this is pretty cool. And then later on, I was in some other small plays and then school plays, and I never really lost the desire to do it, but going to drama school was really not an option. So I went into the only other world that I really loved, which was traveling. Mm-hmm. And I worked for a travel agency for about 6.5 years, but ended up only traveling to work on the subway every day. So that was kind of a disappointment. And in the meantime, I was doing a lot of workshops in the evening, mime, improvisation, and a lot of comedy sketch writing, which I had been doing at school and then continued with friends after we left school. And then this was at an art centre in South London called the Oval House. And there was one of the people that was in the improv group that we formed was Pierce Brosnan for James Bond fame.
Yeah.
And we still keep in touch. And at one point, he was our state. He ran a follow spot for us on one of our shows, and he and I were in this improv group together. We had lots of fun, and we did street theater and everything. But a lot of groups were based at this art centre, mm-hmm. and some of them became quite well known. Some people became very well known, including Pierce. And an opening came along for one of these groups, a comedy group. They were like underground fringe theatre groups. Mm-hmm. And a friend of mine who was in the improv group also had auditioned for this group and got in, and he recommended that I do this. So I sat there and I thought, well, here I am in this 9-to-5 office, world, not really what I want to be doing. So what the hell, I'll give it 5 years. I'm going to see what will happen to me if I can be an actor for 5 years. Well, I knew I'd made the right decision within days, and never went back. Never did anything else except acting and writing and directing. Never drove a cab, never waited tables, never did anything. And that is my only claim to success.
Yeah.
Is that I managed to somehow survive doing nothing but what I wanted to do. And that was way back, donkeys years ago, as they say. And that was way back in the early 70s. So it's been, maybe 45, 48 years, 48 years. Goofing around, doing exactly what I wanted to do. And ironically, doing everything else that I wanted to do, doing a lot of traveling, doing music, writing comedy sketches, performing, directing, absolutely everything, all wrapped up in one. And so I had a good time.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. You kept your eye on the prize and you kept going.
Yeah, and I mean, not that it wasn't difficult. I mean, there were ups and downs. There were real high times and other times when it was like, oh my God, how am I ever going to get out of this hole? But I never wanted to give up. I just never. I knew I couldn't go back to really doing anything else. And by now, by those times, this would be, a few years. Well, as I said, we hit high times and we hit really low times. There was one point when I was almost waiting for an apartment to become available and living in an empty apartment with just a cardboard box with temporary necessities in it.
Yeah.
Well, it won't get much lower than this. I think that. But as you say, keeping an eye on the prize, and that really never wanted to do anything else. Never thought for 1 second of giving it all up ever. So
yeah,
that's true.
So how did you meet Diz White, Ron House, and everybody?
Well, they were that was this group that was that Ron had formed, and Diz White was involved with. They sort of ran the group, but it was a group that Ron initially had started and then Diz had joined, and they had been through various cast changes and all the rest. And that was at the Oval House in London, in South London. Mm-hmm. Now, Ron was American. He passed away a few years ago now, but he was American and he was in London. And they had done a couple of shows, but they were essentially a sketch comedy group. And that suited me fine,
Yeah.
I actually wasn't even sure of the name of the group. The group was called Low Moan Spectacular. And there's a reason that it was called that, but that's, not of any great interest. But it's... I wasn't even sure what group I joined. I knew that the initials were LN, and I thought I joined La Mama, which was a very weird sort of underground fringe group from out in New York. But no, it was called Low Moan Spectacular, and that's where many groups, as I say, were based. And it was an extraordinary place because you essentially had free rehearsal space.
Yeah.
In a variety of rooms in exchange for trying out your show in their theater. Well, what could be better? That was the tit for tat. You got free rehearsal space and then you did a free show, but you wanted to do a show just to test it out. So all the shows that we ever did were works in progress, starting at the Oval House. Except for that very last one. So for my friends, because by then we were living in America. So
yeah, you guys were in the middle of a comedy revolution in the 70s, post-Vietnam, with all the irreverent comedy that both England and America was doing at the time.
It's very true. And it was this particular place at the Oval was an extraordinary thing. It was I was just thinking about it this morning, and it was like, I remember there was so much creativity going on. There were so many groups that were working or passing through and so on. And it was, I can only equate it to what must have Liverpool with the Beatles and everybody else must have been like a few years before that. And it was like, this was the place where so much was happening. The parking lot was full of these various theater groups, vans. We had an old ambulance that we trucked around with our scenery, with our sets and props and costumes and so on, and ourselves. And we were the only one. I mean, there were many groups. And there's a website, I guess, called Unfinished Histories that it comes out of England, and that really details that whole era. And there was so much going on. Yes, it really was an extraordinary place, and several people became quite famous, as I say, from those early days. And I think they probably started in the very late 60s, but certainly into the early 70s and beyond. And I believe the place is still there, or I haven't been by it in many years.
Mm-hmm. What was the genesis behind Bullshot Crummond?
I remember reading Bulldog. It was based on Bulldog Drummond, who was
right.
A very popular books from in the 20s and 30s. And I remember reading them as a kid, and then Dewes White had found one of these old books in a flea market and thought it was fun. Mm-hmm. And so we said, well, let's see what we can do with this, and we started improvising, because we generally wrote our stuff not by sitting around a typewriter. Not initially. We would get up and say, well, let's do a scene where he's frustrated. The Bulldog Drummond, or Bullshot Crummond, as we called him, is frustrated by peacetime, and he's anxious, and he wants to find the case and all the rest. So we didn't improv a scene, and then we'd sit down at a typewriter, or we would tape record it, and then pick out the best bits, and little by little we assembled a script. I mean, I don't know how long it took, I honestly don't remember, but after a few months, or perhaps less, we had the first act together, and we tried that out, and we knew we were on to something, and that worked very well. And actually, Bullshot Crummond has become, we've had a lot of successes with our shows, but I think Bullshot Crummond possibly is the most successful overall, because it was turned into a film and so on. But all the shows are continue to be done. It's very extraordinary, all through 3 or 4 shows. So,
certainly.
Yes, it was just as a result of rediscovering the books.
Yeah.
And then we had the idea of making it like a crappy B movie on stage, which was then, years and years later, 39 Steps, the play 39 Steps comes along, and what are they doing? They're doing a movie on stage with planes and car crashes and trains and so on, which is exactly what we had. So I'm not saying they copied us. It was something just sitting there right to the picking,
Yeah.
And, it was good fun, and we looked at a lot of the old, very early Bulldog Drummond films, including, I think somehow we managed to, through the British Film Institute or somebody like that, we managed to see a very, very old film of Bulldog Drummond that was on highly inflammable nitrate stock, and we saw that, and then we found other bits and pieces, and you see, there were many things. There were radio shows, there were American movies. Ronald Coleman was claimed to fame because he did Bulldog Drummond in America, but there were others. I think Rafe Richardson did one in the late 20s. It wasn't a silent, I don't think. That was the one that was on flammable stock, but I think I said it was flammable earlier. Flammable stock. So. Yeah, there were many people. The character I loved, who I can't remember which film it was an actor called John Lodge, who was part of the Cabot Lodge family.
The Moody Blues.
I don't know. No, it was a Bulldog Drummond movie.
Oh, okay.
And he looks like the image that I'd always had of Bulldog Drummond. So I copied him. I thought that will look like one, and that helped me tremendously. Anyway.
The but the show got really popular in my hometown, San Francisco.
Oh yes, yes. It had, the story behind that is that the first show that we brought to America was called El Coca-Cola Grande, which changed its name to El Grande to Coca-Cola when we were in New York. Mm-hmm. And we had been doing that show and Bullshot Crummond at the Edinburgh Festival in 1970, probably, or maybe 71. It could have been 71. And both shows were very successful there. And these three producers at that time brought Coca-Cola over. It was a huge hit in New York, around for maybe 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. And then we opened it. We handed it over to the replacement cast, which was, in my case, my role was taken over by Jeff Goldblum. Mm-hmm. And Ron House's main character was taken over by the late Ron Silver. Oh. Anyway, we went to San Francisco to do Coca-Cola, branded Coca-Cola, and it was very successful. But the whole plan was to immediately recast it, and then we would go on to another city and open there, and then recast and then open, which is what Godspell had done. But we never felt safe about leaving the show in San Francisco. We thought, well, I think it needs us to do it. We found some great people. But I think that we knew it wasn't going to last. So we went back to England, got Bullshot Crummond finally together, ready to bring that to New York. And when we did that, it was not successful. I don't know why. It's ultimately become by far the most successful show of ours. So when we were back in New York, Coca-Cola was still playing. But we could not go back into the show. Into the Coca-Cola show, Equity was not going to let us do that. So we said, well, this is crazy. The Bullshot Crummond show closed very quickly. And we said, well, what do we do now? We don't want to go back to England. The only other city we knew was San Francisco. And we said, well, heck, we'll produce ourselves we'll go to San Francisco, raise the money. We know this is a good show. And we'll get it on ourselves. So eventually we all wound up there. Ron and I went, and one of the other guys in the show went via Toronto to do El Grande to Coca-Cola, so that we had some sort of income coming in. And eventually we opened in San Francisco for Bullshot Crummond in, I think it was April 75 or somewhere around there. I'm not sure. You might know better. And it ran for nearly 5 years. I mean, it was extraordinary, and that's how successful it was. And it just kept on going and going and going. And it proved our point. We knew that it was a hit show, and that's what eventually took us to LA. But yes, it was a huge thing in San Francisco. Yeah. Senator Dianne Feinstein was then mayor of San Francisco, and she loved the show. She came and she gave us we've got some certificate somewhere, like, I don't know, just a recognition of the show.
Yeah.
But you're right, they were heady days, and we changed the scene a lot in San Francisco, because as a result of that, we were in a position where we could produce other things. And at one point, we had 4 shows running that we produced. Mm-hmm. Well, we weren't in them, while we were writing yet another show. And but the whole time we were there, we kind of had our eye on Los Angeles down the Interstate 5. And although the show kept running, we eventually moved to LA and opened the show there. And again, it was just took the theater scene here by storm. We were very, very lucky. And the show continued for 2 or 3 years after that in San Francisco. But yeah, so I didn't know you were. That was your hometown, but it was a great day.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. My introduction to the show was first the movie, and then I finally saw the Showtime performance you guys did on YouTube, and I like the show a lot better because it had such a a Monty Python-esque boutiness about it, but with the integrity of 70s sketch and improv, like, Second City and the Groundlings were doing.
Well, Second City, Runhouse was originally Second City, so he was with their touring company, I think, or a second company. I can't be sure which, but so that Second City craziness, and plus, as you say, with the Monty Python, and in fact, the very I mentioned earlier about knowing I was on the right track. Somehow, we did a run-through of Coca-Cola prior to opening it in London, a new version. Originally, it was just comedy sketches. And then the Hampstead Theatre Club was run at that time by ultimately, I think, a Tony-winning director, Vivian Matalon. And he came down to see this little run-through of Coca-Cola and the comedy sketches. And he said, look, I really love that opening with the Spanish MC and his family, and you closed the show with that as well. He said, you give me a complete show with no English in it, all in foreign languages that we will understand because it's so visual. I'll book you into the Hampstead Theatre Club, which is a highly prestigious theatre club. And somehow or other, John Cleese came to see was one of our work in progress things, not at Hampstead, but still back at the Oval House. And so that's why I say within a very short space of time, I knew I'd made the right decision to leave my desk job in London and go out and travel and do everything else. But yes, so anyway, that's how that's how we got to San Francisco. It was a complicated group, but it all dates back to Coca-Cola. But yes, Bullshot was indeed the movie, and then it was the first concert show that Showtime ever did.
Wow.
I don't mean it was the first program they ever broadcast, but it was the first time because I think it was just 1979, 80.
79, yeah.
Yes, and the Showtime was very fledgling, and so was HBO.
Right.
And they didn't have huge budgets, so this suited them extremely well. They could come in. We had a show already up at the theatre. We did it at the Coronet Theatre on La Cienega in Los Angeles. And so all they had to do was bring in the remote, bring in the trucks, bring in the cameras, and there we were. There was the show. I mean, I'm making it sound simpler than it was, but it's it was the show. And in fact, our other show, El Grande de Coca-Cola, was the very first concert show that HBO ever did.
Wow.
So it was not the first show they ever did, but it was the first time they'd done like a concert thing. So
wow.
And that was in 1978, and that was filmed. That was taped at the Comedy Store in LA, and so it was. The whole scene was changing, and it was a great time. I know I'm hopping from San Francisco to LA now, but it was a wonderful time to be in Los Angeles for us. And it was just incredible. Every night when we brought Bullshot Crummond down to do, we'd look out, we'd peek through the curtains every night, and there would be more and more famous people. I mean, just total legends. One night, Hugh Hefner was there with 8 women with him. And, and it led to a whole lot of work. That was a real high time for us. Instantly followed by total desperation. Because in 1980 in LA, there was an enormous strike.
Right.
Writers Guild, Directors Guild, Actors Guilds, the whole town practically shut down. And I remember, to this day, walking around a lot among the sound stages at Universal, and nobody was there. It was just empty. And my footsteps were literally echoing off the walls of the sound stage. And I said to myself, look, I never had dreams of going to Hollywood or anything like that. It was just, I was too far-fetched. But here I was. minute we get here and we get all these gigs, the place closes down. I thought, oh my God, you know, I really thought it was the end. It felt so terminal, but it wasn't, of course, and things eventually came back, and then we got the Bullshot movie, and we were off and flying again. And but it was a very tough time in Los Angeles at that point, and when those strikes were hitting, because nobody was working, and it was really bad.
Yeah.
But
how did you guys find Mark Blankfield?
I was saying earlier that when we left New York, when Coca-Cola was still running, and we said, well, we'll go to Los Angeles, we'll go to San Francisco and do Bullshot Crummond. And we had auditions. We held auditions in New York. I think Mark had decided, you know, he thought, oh, I'll squeeze in that audition while I'm there. And we saw him and we really liked him. He was as crazy as we were. And I mean, but physical comedy, and that was not a lot of people were doing physical comedy because it could be dangerous and because, you know, they just don't know how to do it. And but he, my God, he did. He was doing the most amazing stuff, and not only in Bullshot Crummond, but then in the subsequent show we did called Splat Frenzy, and here was a guy who could run up a set of stairs and kick his feet up in the air and slam into them on his back.
Yeah.
Disappear over the steps and then come flying back on. Both Mark Blankfield and the guy that we cast to replace Mark when he decided to quit us. And he did a few movies with Mel Brooks, as you probably know.
Right.
And we still stay in touch. He's now on the East Coast. And we replaced Mark Blankfield with Roger Bumpus, who is the voice of Squidward on SpongeBob. And Roger Bumpus was an equally extraordinary physical comedian.
Yeah.
And fit right in. I mean, I had been doing, if you know the Coca-Cola show, if you've seen it, you know that I do a whole routine on my knees, racing around the stairs, jumping up onto chairs, jumping off. I mean, the highest I ever jumped off was about 4 foot landing on my knees, so 4 foot high. Not an easy thing to do, but a crazy physical comedy. And that's what Mark Blankfield had, and that's what Roger Bumpus had. Between the three of us, it was kind of fun.
Yeah, Mark, he's an underrated genius and chameleon of comedy, I think. And
he totally. And yes, we had done when we were still together as a group, we're doing Bullshot. We had an offer from ABC television to do a special. They were looking for something to compete with Saturday Night Live. And we did a special for them, but, I mean, in retrospect, it was a little dated, I think, our concept. We didn't have it there. But the guys we were working with also had a deal to do with ABC, and they created the show Fridays. So Mark and Brandis Kemp, who was also in Bullshot Crummond, they were in that show, and in that series. So, and then Mel Brooks, as I say, put him in a couple of films. But then, for a variety of reasons, Mark did less and less stuff. And eventually it was just a school teacher. It was worked for the school district, the Los Angeles School District. And eventually retired, and as I say, now lives on the East Coast. And to my knowledge, does not do theater or film or anything, which is a huge loss because he was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, that is sad. He had trouble staying in character, though, when you showed up in your swimsuit with the erection.
Yes. I know. It was great fun doing that show. Obviously, Bullshot Crummond is fantastic. I mean, we did it. Remember, we were doing 7 or 8 shows a week. Mm-hmm. We dozens of times we did the show. And we didn't stay in it all the way through. When we moved the show down to LA and recast it for up there, obviously Mark came with us. And so we did another long run here, and then we took it to Washington, D.C., and we took it to what was then the Westwood Playhouse, now the Geffen Playhouse. And, and it was amazing. But I miss him, and I do stay in touch, but it's a great loss to the comedy world, I think, that he just isn't doing that anymore.
Yeah. How did the movie come about?
The movie was, again, in the depths of that sort of the strikes and all the rest. Ron House had an audition for a film that was going to be called War is Heck. And during the audition, there was an English director, Dick Clement, he and his partner Ian LaFrenne are responsible for some of the all-time classic British television shows. But they were in LA, they shuttled back and forth. And Dick was supposed to do a film for Handmade Films, George Harrison's company, but he couldn't do it. He was going to do Privates on Parade, I think it was, I'm not sure. I think it was Privates on Parade. But he couldn't do that because he was doing War is Heck here. So he then when Ron House was auditioning for War is Heck, they got talking, and Ron mentioned about doing the shows of, these Bullshot Crummond based on Bulldog Drummond, and Dick Clement being British and growing up and all this stuff. He said, "Oh, I remember the Bulldog Drummond books." He said, "Well, we've got the show. Why don't we've got it taped, so why don't you have a look at it?" And he said, "Yeah, he said, the War is Heck movie has just fallen through. I'm going to talk to Handmade Films. I can't get that other one back, but let me show them this." So George Harrison's manager at the time, Dennis O'Brien, that's who Dick gave the thing to. It was like a miracle. He looked at it that night. He called up the next day and said, "Yeah, I want to do this." And it was as simple as that. You hear about studios green lighting a project. This was green lit by one guy only, Dennis O'Brien, and with George's. I was okay, of course. And we immediately started writing a screenplay, and based on the stage, loosely based on the stage production. The gimmick of the stage production, of course, as I said earlier, was that it was a movie on stage. So there were a lot of cardboard cutouts. It was two-dimensional. It was almost two-dimensional acting. It was two-dimensional across the board. That was not going to work for a movie where you're actually making the movie. So that's why it opened up. And so that's essentially how it happened. It was a complete flip. Ron mentioned it to Dick Clement. Dick Clement took it to Handmade Films, and they said, "Yes, let's do this." And that was the end of a very gloomy period for us, where there wasn't that much. A few things happened. Nothing. It's not like nothing happened, but this was a biggie. And I've stayed very close friends with Dick Clement ever since. That happy in the photo, of course. That was very heady days, going to London and shooting the film, meeting George Harrison and becoming friends, and me jamming with him and all the rest. Good times.
Yeah. And so you began playing character roles in movies. You played a guard in The Incredible Shrinking Woman with Lily Tomlin. Yes,
well, what happened? That all came about because Joel Schumacher was directing the Incredible Shrinking Woman with Lily Tomlin. And Lily came to see the show. And I guess Joel was with her, or she got him to come and see the show. And they said, "We want these guys." It wasn't just me. They just said, "We want this group of people to be in our show. We want them to be like Keystone Cop security guards." And they can figure out what they want to do. They, of course, loved Mark Blankfield and actually gave him a role in the movie, a lovely role. and that launched his movie career. And so we would go to Universal and we would like work out bits and pieces, chasing in and out of elevators and stuff. And we were pretty much given free license about who we wanted. So we had more or less our cast and friends of the cast or replacement people from the cast. And so that was just a whole comedy suite. It's a silly sequence towards the end of the film, but it was good fun. We worked on that film. We were involved for quite a while on that film, and it was. I guess it was the first film we ever did, yes, I think it was the first film that we were ever involved with. Although John Carpenter had also come to see the show and liked us, and again wanted a group of us to go in the show, and that was Escape from New York. And I'm having trouble remember which was first. I think Shrinking Woman was first. And then we did Escape from New York, just one scene. And I decided to figure out who I am.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that scene in Escape from New York. It's very memorable and it's very funny because Ernest Borgnine is just sitting there smiling and enjoying himself.
I know. Yeah, he was great. He was terrific. It was, I'm not saying touch with John Carpenter or anything, but it was a fun thing. And what I do remember this much was that we filmed the whole thing. We filmed what the routine that we were going to do. And then they realized they hadn't got the right clearances for the song that we were doing. So we had to redo the whole thing again with a different song, sort of loosely based on what we were trying to do. But so I think we filmed it twice. Mm-hmm. And I recently worked with a cinematographer whose name I'm blanking on at the moment. We suddenly realized that we'd worked with, I was doing a short film 2 or 3 years back, and he was the GP. But it was good fun. John Carpenter was great. And again, it was like we had pretty much free reign to do whatever within the parameters of, the scenes, of just figuring out what the hell we were going to do. It was great.
Yeah. And then you got to work with many great people in the underrated movie Water.
Yes. Well, that came out of Bullshot because it had handmade. While we were in post-production, I don't even remember it. I'm not sure if Bullshot had actually been released at that point in London. But Dick and Neil Lafrene they were commissioned by, they took another project which was Water. They took that to Dennis O'Brien, and he wanted to do that. And, at one point they were suggesting that maybe I should play the lead, but then they got Michael Caine. Well, there's no question of who you were going to go with. We filmed it. We filmed in St. Lucia in the West Indies, and then in Devon in England. And but it was a very, very fun thing to be involved with because there were Valerie Perrine and Brenda Vaccaro and Michael Caine and Leonard Rossiter, all these great comedic names, and I'm missing out several others. It was just a great film to be involved with, and it was, as I say, and Dick Clement directing, it was like home week for me, and really a wonderful, wonderful time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a pretty funny movie. It's very underrated. Yeah. It should be on DVD.
Yeah. Well, I think it is. I think I've got it. I might have it, or maybe not. No, maybe I've only got an old VHS of it. I can't remember.
I know it's on VHS, but I don't think it's on DVD, though.
I think you may be right, yeah.
And speaking of movies that should be on DVD, the first time I saw you, Ron, and Diz was in the movie Stoogemania.
Well, yes, and I don't remember a whole lot about that, and I don't remember I don't remember an enormous amount about it, but I look back at it and I think, oh my God, look who was in this, look who was involved.
Yeah.
But yes, and I think I remember this. I think it was more than just Ron Diz and me. I think there were other people again where they'd seen the show and they said, "Well, we want these guys. Let's fit them in here somehow." Yeah, it was. I don't remember I remember bits and pieces of when we were filming, but I don't remember a lot of what we were doing. And I should look at it again, and then it would all come back to me, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, you do a great Emil Sitka as the Justice of the Peace. I mean, it's uncannily dead on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll take your word for it. I really don't know. I can't remember that at all.
Well, I can imagine from watching, you guys must have left with a lot of bruises and sore limbs doing that reenacting of Brideless Groom.
Oh yeah, we would. We could throw ourselves around, but we never endangered ourselves. We took risks, but we always had padding and all the rest just in case. And I guess it would be too easy to. When I was doing this Toulouse Trek routine, and I don't know if you've seen it with Coca-Cola, but everybody would say, "Oh my God, your knees are shot for the rest of your life." But having done it hundreds and hundreds of times, I'm still walking. I haven't had any knee replacements yet. May happen one day, but everybody else who's having the knee replacements, mine is still working. So I don't know. Go figure.
Yeah. Your movements and gestures are hilarious in that, because they remind me so much of Emil Sitka and Josh Mostel and Melanie Chardoff. They were great
That's
together.
Right. Yeah, I saw Melanie recently, and that's what she mentioned. She talked about Stoogemania. I completely forgotten. Josh Mostel, yes, that's right. Well, you've done good research, so. I should have sat down and watched that film before we talked.
Yep, it's on YouTube.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
You played Rodrigo in the matinee serial parody Jake Speed.
Yes, that was that happened out of. I was in London. I was again thanks to Dick Clement and Ian Frene. They had a series that they were doing for Central Television, which was on the commercial independent TV, ITV network. And so I was doing a series there. And a friend of mine from LA called me up and he said, do you want to do a film in Africa? And I said, what? Yeah, of course. And that was when I seemed to be working quite a lot. I went from that series, I went to do the movie in Africa. I flew then back to New York to do a revival of El Grande and Coca-Cola in New York, at the Village Gate. But the thing with Jake Speed, we filmed in Zimbabwe. Well, you could do that then. You wouldn't really want to go to Zimbabwe right now. It's in terrible trouble financially. And but it was a wonderful trip. And working with John Hurt, who became a good friend, was magical. And there we were, suddenly shooting this film in Africa. And that was my first trip there. And I wasn't working all the time. On free time, we'd go off and explore. And John and his wife, John Hurt and his wife at the time, they came, we would go off in a little gang and we'd go off on safari and stuff like that. And but his wife was pretty crazy. I don't know about physical comedy, but she was very dead. She would go and try and make friends with a crocodile, which is a very dangerous thing to do. And we did. Each of us go into, we were visiting, we used lions in the film, and there was a guy who I'd met very briefly in LA who had this lion park in the capital of Zimbabwe's Harare. And he had a lion park just outside of the city. And we reconnected with him. We would have done anyway because the film was using him. And he took us around this lion park. And he showed us, and we started off with really, really little tiny kitten lions, if you like. And he took us around, and then there was a cage with 27 lions in it, and they were all about 6 months to 9 months old, pretty much full size. And he said, does anybody want to go in? And I can't remember who went in first, probably Donna, John Hurt's wife at the time. She was crazy enough to do that. And I thought, well, she's going. I'm going to go in. I'm going to chance it. But not by yourself. You go in with with the guy that owned it. He'd known all these lions. They knew him since birth. So I walked in with him, and all he had was a stick in his hand. So not a huge stick. So we go into the cage with these 27 lions, and I said, I trust you. He said, and then they shut the door behind us, and immediately 2 lions sit down, lie across the door, so we can't get out that way without their permission. The second thing that happens is that another lion comes along and takes the stick out of his hand, out of the tray or over his hand. So now the 2 of us are just standing there. And if you've ever seen a cat move, if you have your back to them, they will sneak up behind you ready to bat you with a paw. So as you walk on, you turn around, and there's a cat ready to bat you with a paw, but you turn around, and he gets up and says, hey, look, I'm not doing anything. I didn't do anything. It's not me. You're now facing the other way, and there is now a lion, full-size lion, behind you the other way, ready to bat you. So you just kind of stand there, twirling slowly, not bothering anybody. And eventually I said to him, well, I think we've played this far enough. I think it's time to get out of here. I would never do that, no matter what I would never do that again. I don't know what I was thinking. But so we head for the door, and the 2 lions lying across the door, they get up and say, hey, we're not stopping you. We're okay. Off you go. And then my wife went in, and other people went in, but oh my God, it was an extraordinary thing. But, so there were moments like that, which you just never forget. And the film was good fun to make. Our friend Andy Lane was directing, and his partner at the time, Wayne Crawford, had written the show, and they were co-producing. And we got to meet John Hurt and work with him, and so it was a very good time.
Yeah, I heard a couple people I've interviewed have worked with Wayne Crawford and Andrew Lane. They say that they were pretty tough producers.
Well, I did. I knew it was sort of a strange. They were not. I think that they were always up against it. I mean, budgets were always. They were always trying to stretch the budgets as far as they could. Wayne eventually passed away, but Andy's still around, and he teaches down at Chapman. As far as I know, he's still teaching down there. And but I mean, as producers, I don't know. They didn't screw us or anything. We had a deal, and off we went, and we did the movie. And I don't have anything negative to say about them at all, from my own experience. So I don't know. Mm-hmm. Maybe that was when they continued on. They were doing quite a lot of stuff, I think, in South Africa eventually. And I don't know what. I wasn't involved with any of that. Maybe, but they were certainly producing all that themselves. And as I say, budgets are never big enough. You always need more time. You always need more money. So being a producer, you're always going to get accused of being you're cheap or you're cutting corners. It's not. I do not like producing. I just hate it.
Yeah.
I had to do it out of necessity, but I don't. It's not a favorite thing of mine at all.
That is true. That is true about budgets. Yeah.
Yeah.
You played a security salesman and vice versa.
Yes. Again, thanks to Dick Clement. I mean, I've had some very loyal friends who have put me in. They were directing a film. They wrote me in. Dick Clement and another friend, Kevin Connor, who did a lot of TV stuff all over the world. But yes, we did. We shot in Chicago, and I was only up there very briefly, but that was a fun little scene to do. I remember this nerdy guy at security, selling security equipment in a department store or something like that, if I remember right.
Yeah.
But, yeah, good fun. Good fun to do.
It's one of my favorite holiday movies that never gets mentioned.
No, I know. Well, the fun thing about that film was that suddenly there were 3 films, and that was one of them. That was the one that was most advanced. But then George Burns did one, something about...
Yeah, 18 again.
18 again, that's right.
Yeah.
And then there was yet another one. And it was like the same idea with all 3 films. And you never know whether somebody else said, "Oh, we're making that film. That sounds like a cool idea. Why don't do that as well?" And let's beat them to the punch. I don't know. It was. It did. I think it got lost amongst all 3 of them. But it was. Vice versa was good fun to do anyway, and they always are.
Mm-hmm. And then you co-wrote and played a role in probably one of Leslie Nielsen's last movies, 2001: A Space Travesty.
Yes. Not a great film. I'll be the first to say that. Leslie and I actually wrote it together. And then when we I don't know, I guess it was before we filmed it or at some point. I think before we filmed it. He said, "You know what?" He said, "I want you to have the sole writing credit." I was like, "Thanks, Leslie. I'll get the blame now. That'll be my fault." He said, "No. I want it to be a big hit. I want successful and all the rest." It was a big gig for me. I mean, the writing, and then I did the second unit directing. But the film got, what I will only say, in my opinion, got corrupted by various people, and not intentionally. Nobody sets out to make a bad film.
No.
Everybody dreams of it being a knockout success, but there were some things that weren't right, and so although it was one of the best experiences I've ever had, because of writing and second unit directing and doing a couple of tiny little one-liner roles in it, and being very, very involved from beginning to end. It was. I just was talking to Jeff Kovac, who really was the guy behind the whole thing. He and Leslie were the instigators of this. Jeff had run into Leslie in a bank or something, and Leslie said, "I want to do that film we talked about some time ago," because they'd done a film before. And so, funnily enough, another very low point in my, if you want to call it career, whatever, in the journey. I was away on vacation with some friends. We'd gone to the Grand Canyon, and suddenly I get a call from Jeff Coleman saying, "Hey, are you in town, or can you be in town on Monday and meet Leslie Nielsen about writing a movie?" I said, "Yeah." And I had nothing. I was completely out of work. We were just taking this vacation, we were spending our last few pennies, and then it turned around again. And suddenly I was involved with this film, and as I say, really involved from beginning to end. And so we shot in Munich, and we shot in Montreal, and it was one of the, it may still be, for Quebec, for the province of Quebec, it was a very, very big budget film, the biggest one probably that they had at that point ever had. I mean, it was something, I don't know, 20 million or 22 million Canadian dollars at the time, which was big for Quebec, very big, and it was great fun. Not with problems all the way. The very problems all the way. When we flew out, I was flying out the same day as Leslie, his wife, to Munich. I met them at the airport, He was flying first class. I had my tickets. I was okay. I wasn't flying first class, but whatever. His tickets weren't there, and they had no reservation. And he had to front the first class airfare to get himself to Munich. That was the first little glitch. The money was always precarious. And then on the very first day of filming, you'd have to see the film to understand what was going on. But on the very first day of filming, Leslie had to do, you could call it a stunt. It was barely a stunt. All he had to do was climb through a window, like breaking into his own or breaking into an office, and sort of clumsily land on the table, or maybe he was even just supposed to climb through, and that was it. But and the people said, "Well, I think he was supposed to land on the table." I forget. Not a big thing. And they said, everybody said, "Well, do you want a stunt guy to do this?" He said, No, I can do this. No problem whatsoever. So he flies through the window, trips on some cable on the floor, and smashes his face into the desk. And he's now got 2 black eyes, and he was really smacked himself. We had to just stop filming. And we'd only been filming half a day or something. So that was day one. We shot day one and shut down on day one. Leslie had to heal. And then, so later on, you'll see a scene in the film where Leslie's face is completely covered in shaving foam. And that's because his face was black and blue underneath. But we were able to do that. And they said, we caught you in that. He said, "Excuse me, I always shave my whole face." We had to work our way around this accident, and so it went on. There was and shooting in Germany was because Germans crews are very, very efficient. You say you're going to do this, that's what you do. Here's the schedule. You stick to the schedule. We time this. It's military in its precision. So with this, suddenly everything was thrown out the window, and that was very difficult for them. And, he'd say, well, I would be doing second unit stuff, and I'd say, okay, well, I want to do that this morning. I know we talked about doing it. And I said, but you said you were going to do this in the afternoon. I said, yeah, I know, but we can switch it to the morning. It'll work better overall. But you said you would do this in the afternoon. I said, yes, but now we're going to do it in the morning. But you said you would do this in the afternoon. And it was very difficult for the crew to adapt and just to roll with it. But they learned.
I remember Comedy Central. I remember Comedy Central played this movie for years.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It still gets played. I haven't seen it in ages, but it does get played. I think it gets. I do get the odd writer's residual from Canada. I think because that's where the production was.
Yeah.
And but it was a big project. I learned a lot about special effects, which of course are now CGI and stuff like that. But that was then. That was that whole world has completely changed. I wouldn't know what the hell I was doing about that anymore. But I did learn a hell of a lot, and it was really interesting to be involved on different as a writer, as an actor, as a second unit director. But it was a bumpy ride, that one. Fun, but a bumpy ride.
I'm sure Leslie had his whoopee cushion with him.
He tried it. There's one fart jokes do not make me laugh, and if you can get through the movie, somebody decided it would be really funny to have fart noises on the end credits. Well, I was not around for that. I would have just kicked up such a stink if I'd known. It was like just falling apart, and people who shouldn't have been allowed anywhere near the film were like suddenly making changes and so I don't talk much about that film, but although it was one of the biggest gigs I ever had, in fact, you know. So it was good fun.
You and Ron wrote a movie together that I've always loved called The Shrimp on the Barbie.
Yes, with
Cheech.
With Cheech. Yeah, that was another bumpy ride. But we, and it was an odd time. It was maybe strikes and things like that were going on again. I forget. But we met with Cheech, and the film did get made. I mean, much to our surprise. But I will tell you this: we were writing the script. Mm-hmm. The producer was calling up every 10 minutes saying, "So, what else? You know, what did you come up with?" Well, we just talked to you. You know, we're working on that little scene, whatever. Oh, okay. Oh, all right. And then an hour later, he called me. So tell me, how's it going? It was like, it was great. Can you just let us just do this? And then, as time went on, we suddenly discovered that there was another writer had been hired to write the script, and that's why there are three writers credited on the film. And so it was not easy, but they did actually film it, and the director took his name off. It's Smithy. It's a Smithy film.
Alan Smithy, yeah.
Yes, Alan Smithy, the name that it was used when you take your name off a film. So it was. I'm glad I wasn't in Australia where they shot it. I mean, I'm sure it was a nightmare. You talk about people complaining about producers. I'm glad I wasn't there.
Yeah, I met Vernon Wells at a convention a couple of years ago, and he told me that movie would have gone a lot smoother and a lot better if Cheech had actually directed the movie.
Oh, that's absolutely true, I'm sure. And yes, I think that's probably true. I mean, Cheech is a very talented comedian, in a true comedy sense. And I'm sure, I can't imagine what arguments and screaming matches were going on. I don't know. I can't say I ever heard that there were. But if there weren't, I would be surprised. I mean, really.
Yeah.
It was a difficult situation. But they did the film. And Ron and I went to see it when it came out. And, you know, for the first time, we actually had a billboard up on the Sunset Strip, and that was kind of fun. And we made to see it, and you know, it was like we were expecting the absolute worst, and it was better than the absolute worst. But it was, you know, it needed grabbing by the scruff of the neck and, you know, shaking into place. And you are absolutely right. Cheech would have made a far better director.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Sure. But I can't necessarily. I'm not even sure that it's the director's fault. The director, I know what he was dealing with, and I think that I think I know who was trying to direct that film, and it was one of the producers, and I think that's why the guy took his name off it, because it wasn't what he wanted to do. He said, "This is not my film." You know? And so I'm not blaming, and I don't even remember who the actual guy was, to be honest. But I'm not necessarily blaming him, because I think it was just a very tumultuous production, and I don't blame him for taking. You know, you only take your name off something if you just say, "This is nothing to do with me. I'm not. You know, this is not my film." So it may not have been his fault.
Yeah, it's still a funny movie, I think.
It's what?
It's still a funny movie, I think.
Oh yeah. It's cuter than I, you know, than I expected. Actually, it's not the worst film in the world. It really isn't.
Mm-hmm. I was curious. So when Ron died a few years ago, what did he die of?
Throat cancer.
Throat cancer.
Yes, he had tongue and or throat cancer. I can't imagine a more horrific way to go. He had been complaining about something in his throat, and they said, "Oh, I don't agree," and that just would not go away. And at that point, we were doing a stage revival of that in a Coca-Cola show at a very small theater and I don't remember whether it was a cancer on his tongue or a cancer in the throat initially. But eventually, there were various options that were given to him, and he did not like. I mean, one was to cut out a section of your tongue. Well, for a man who loved to talk, this was just not really an option. I'm not sure whether. I think he ultimately decided it was the wrong choice because, visually, it was pretty awful. He looked like the Elephant Man by the end.
Oh, God.
I mean, because he was his throat had swollen to such an extent that he couldn't breathe or eat properly, and so there were tubes going in and out of him, and it was just heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. Actually, it's his widow's birthday today, and I just called her, and it was tough. So he was in hospital, and eventually he just got worse and worse. And he and I had been working on a sequel to our Coca-Cola show, which actually happened. It was called El Grande Circus, the Coca-Cola, and we did that at the Skylight Theater in Hollywood. And then it transferred to the Coronet Theater in Burbank. Ron never saw that production. And he was too ill. He saw some rehearsals and had ideas, but by the time the show went up, he was too ill to see it. I mean, he was still alive, but he was too sick to see it. He was everything. And we had been working on a sequel to the Bullshot Crummond play. And that, he died before we finished the whole, we knew where it was going. I think, and then I ended up finishing it off, the sequel, which is called Bullshot Crummond, The Invisible Bride of Death and The Evil Eye of Jabbar, a comedy in 2 episodes. But, I finished that, and I directed a production up in Portland, Oregon, a theater where I direct from time to time, called the Lakewood Theater, which is in Lake Oswego, which is a wealthy suburb of Portland. And I did it there, and again, for me it was heartbreak because the 2 last shows that Ron and I worked on together, he never saw. And, I mean, that's so sad. It's really painful for me. But my God, and again, but he was funny. He was funny until the end. I mean, when we were coming up with these ideas for the sequel, I mean, some of the funniest things in it are his. I'm not taking credit, but it's just, he's that clever. And some of the, and in the Bullshot movie, some of the funniest sequences were definitely his. I mean, they were things that when he described that, I said, I don't know if that's going to work tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. We tried it, and of course it worked, and it was the funniest thing in the film, or whatever, or the funniest thing in the show. And it was great fun to work with, and we just when we were having a good writing session, we could barely breathe from laughing so much, tears rolling down our face. Not saying, we're so funny, but just stuff that made us laugh. And we never, when we wrote together, and we did quite a lot of writing together, for years and years, it was never like, we never thought, what if the audience, I wonder if the audience will find this funny. We didn't care. It just made us laugh, and we generally found that what made us laugh made other people laugh. But it was never done with that. Well, we've got to do something that people will find funny. No, let's do something that we find funny. And I think that was that was a very wise thing to, a very wise way to go. I like to think so anyway. So,
yeah.
Yes, he is sadly missed. He's sadly missed.
Yeah, when I think of him, I think of 2 things. One, that bad wig he wore in Stoogemania, and 2, that
was a lift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 2, do you remember that classic scene he had in Airplane 2?
Oh, yes, it was was it in a control room or somewhere?
No.
Like a control tower or something? I can't remember.
No. I'll tell you. He's a passenger. He's a passenger on the plane, and he's smoking a cigar. And the stewardess says, "Sir, you're going to have to distinguish that cigar." And he said, "All right." So then he opened the window, and the wind blew.
I'd forgotten that. Yes. Yeah, that gig came out. Again, came out of doing Bullshot Crummond, on the stage in LA. I mean, it was so many things happened as a result. That's right. Yes, you're right. I'd forgotten that scene. Very funny.
That play brought you guys a lot of good fortune, it sounds.
Oh yes, it did. And then there was a lot of TV stuff that I did. I mentioned earlier about another friend, Kevin Connor. We had worked together, and I mentioned it right at the beginning of this thing about how much I wanted the travel was the other option. Well, with Kevin, I've worked with him as an actor or as a writer. The biggest thing we ever did was in India. It was a 6-hour miniseries for Italian television, but they wanted it written in English because they wanted what David Putnam, I think, used to call Euro pudding. They had money from France, from Germany, from Spain, and from everywhere else. And each country that put in some money was entitled to have a local star involved. So there was a French star and a Spanish star, a local TV or film star. And we filmed that in India, and we were in India for close to 6 months. And that was up with the Bullshot movie, the 2001 Space Travesty, and this film in India, the top 3 gigs for me. No matter how good or bad the films are, as an experience, this was just magic. And so Kevin and I, and there's other people that he would always try and get on board, we worked in India, we worked in Sri Lanka, we worked in Thailand, we worked in China, we worked in Europe, in England, and Czechoslovakia, Czech Republic, and so on. And just extraordinary. And as a result of those countries, I've seen many others, like Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and so on. And just wonderful, wonderful travel experiences and wonderful, wonderful jobs too. And those generally were TV miniseries and long form stuff. And I've been involved with Kevin as a rewriter more than a writer, where a script would show up. The one for India was the classic. This was a 6-hour miniseries. The guys that had written it, they translated it from a children's book that was very popular in Europe and unheard of here, or in England. And they'd written, if they had filmed a script that they wrote, I think it would have been about 45 minutes to an hour long, and they wanted 6 hours. I've never seen emptier pages in my life. It was like three little speeches on a page and a lot of... It was ridiculous. And they flew me out to India, and I sat there and pretty much, this sounds like an exaggeration, but actually it's true, wrote this whole 6-hour miniseries in a month. And, they couldn't start until they had something, And then a similar thing happened on a project in England where the crew was sitting around, again, a script had showed up that if you'd shot it, it would have been about 20% or 30% of what you needed. And so I was just bulking it up, filling it up and making it a real script for no real credit. And an entire film crew sitting around waiting for this to be finished. I tell you, the pressure was intense.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
So really quickly, Alan, how did you get into voiceover work? Through Anna Mathias, who is my wife. Anna and I met doing our other third play, Footlight Frenzy,
which is if you currently playing is The Play That Goes Wrong. Mm-hmm. Footlight Frenzy predates that and predates Noises Off by many years. It was about a bunch of people doing a show where everything goes wrong, and although The Play That Goes Wrong is very funny and has had an enormous success, far greater than anything we could have ever dreamt of for ourselves. It's different in one way. It's just a series of things. It's like a clown show, it's just things go wrong. But you don't. The difference with that and ours was that we had everything falling apart, and scenery falling over, and all the rest. But you knew the actors. You knew how you got to know the actors backstage, as it were, to see their struggles on the stage. Whereas Play That Goes Wrong is just things falling apart left, right, so it's just bad. Nothing. I can't say that's not valid, but it's just that's the difference. The Noises Off again is even has some lines from Footlight Frenzy there. They wouldn't have known about Footlight Frenzy, so it's not that. So Anna was in this production of Footlight Frenzy that we did up in San Francisco, and ultimately was also taped by Showtime. And I don't know if you've seen it, but it's another concert performance that happened almost by accident. We were in there with some producers who were pitching another idea, and to our embarrassment almost, Showtime said, we don't particularly like that idea, but we'd love to do that Footlight Frenzy play of yours. And these poor other people that we were with who were trying to pitch their idea are standing there while we make a deal to do Footlight Frenzy, more or less. It wasn't quite like that, but it was a little awkward.
Yeah.
But Anna was in Footlight Frenzy when we were in San Francisco, and one thing led to another, and we ended up getting married. And in those things, I've got a phone ringing in the background. I hope see if I can get rid of it.
Okay.
Oh, it stopped. It's all right. No, it's gone. In those days, she was doing voice work. She had been the voice of McDonald's when she lived in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. I never met her in San Francisco. She was there the whole time we were there, but she was in another show. We only met when we moved to Los Angeles,
right.
And we never had that problem of her friends, me not liking her friends or her not liking my friends, because they were all the same people, and they just couldn't believe that we'd never met before. So she was doing. She had a voice career, and then she was starting to do the very early days of looping, the ADR, voice group looping, which is a very great way for actors to earn money. You get paid the same as if you're on camera, and you get residuals forever. And she was in one of the very, very first group that was called up until late 70s, if you wanted background noise, if you shoot, just to explain for people who don't really understand what this is, loop group is, if you've got a scene in a restaurant,
right,
and you've got your two principal actors, they're talking, all those people in the background, they can't make a sound. They've got to mind what they're saying, really, because otherwise it would mess up all the sound. If you're going to cut, you'd have this sort of hub up, and it would just, you've got to wait till you've got everything cut, and then you lay in that background sound. So what they used to do in the old days was just do walla, 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 walla. They were called walla groups, or the initial name was walla groups. But then they said, well, we really need something a bit more specific than that. And there was a woman, Alison Kane, was a woman. She was married for a long time with Carl Gottlieb, who wrote the movie Jaws, the version of Jaws. And she had this little group, but these were early days, and people were a bit lazy about these things, and nobody took it seriously, even though you were getting decent money and you were getting residuals. But so a splinter group came out of that, and then a splinter group came out of that one, and so it went on, and splinter groups, and now there are many, many, many looping groups who do this, and you become, when you do these, you go to see a movie, you go to see the unfinished film, you say, okay, you see that guy in the background, can you figure out can you lip read, see what he's saying, or give him a voice? trying to sound like 20,000 or 40,000 people. And you just had to scream your face off all day long yelling. But sometimes things can get very technical, so you have to become the world's leading expert on whatever the film is about. But I've been very fortunate.
Yes, you have.
I've done a lot of these films, and some of the biggest. There's generally a film in the top 10 that I've worked on. Not always, but generally.
Yes.
Just even if it's just a day in a studio, just doing background voices. It's an absolute, very, very fortunate thing to have fallen into, and Anna got me into that world. And there are many groups, but because I'm British, I work for a lot of the different groups. I keep a database of British actors who are good at looping and who are people that can speak foreign languages. I've had to work in many, many different languages. I collect phrase books. Not that I can speak the languages, but at least that they say, oh, well, we need a Sherpa in the Himalayas. We need somebody who can speak Nepalese. I say, well, I don't speak it, but I can give you some phrases and stuff like that. So it becomes very, very specific sometimes. And a lot of people keep saying, oh, I want to do that, I want to do that. And they're right. It is. It's a very good way of earning some bread and butter living. And some people do exceptionally well from it.
Yeah.
People that really do work every day or every week and do series after series. That can be very, very lucrative. I'm certainly not at that level, but I have done a lot. I've done 300-400 films and TV, or maybe more now, I don't know. And I've done over 80 video games and stuff like that. So that voice world is what I sort of do. As an actor, I do much more. I don't ever expect to do stage acting anymore. I gave that up a long time. I still love doing on camera. I still love, I really love directing theatre. And fortunate enough to do that. But the voice work is, you don't have to look your best. Put it that way.
Yeah.
You don't worry about what you look like. You just worry about what you sound like. And
go to the studio naked.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful thing, and it really is thanks to Anna for getting me involved. And she still does it, and when it comes along, and so do I. And so
that's
been very, very lucky. Very lucky.
Yes, you have, Alan. That's wonderful. Do you have any upcoming projects that you'd like to plug? I'm hoping to get the sequel to Bullshot Crummond, who is the play. I'd like to get that published. We've got 3 or 4 plays published. I may be taking it to a different publisher this time, just to see if I can get a better deal or whatever. There's that, and there's a play that I've just read, a friend of mine has written, which I really love, and I would love to direct. So I've been pushing friends in London and up in Portland about, hey, read this script, see if you think it's as good and as entertaining as I think it is. And so I'm looking forward to directing that as and when somebody nibbles and takes the bait. There's that, and what else? So there's always other bits and pieces coming along. I'm hoping there's an animated series that's coming up at DreamWorks that I'm hoping to do some work on, and so that would be good. And so I never know. You never know if you'll ever work again. Yeah.
Even Laurence Olivier said that. You don't know. You always say, well, I guess that's it, and I'm finished, I'm washed up. And so I never take anything for granted, and I'm always very, very grateful for anything that comes along.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part about show business, but you keep going, Alan, and I hope Bullshot Crummond, the sequel, works out for you, because it would be great for a new generation to see it.
I do too, yes, it would. And it was funny, we have a son, and for some reason he never, he actually did one little episode on Family Guy, did a voice, a couple of lines on Family Guy.
Right.
And then we said, well, it's good, you get residuals, you'll see it. Yeah, but around film sets where he could never see anything happen. It looked like nobody was ever doing anything. And he just thought it was so inefficient. He thinks in very straight lines. And we said, well, don't you want to be an actor? I said, don't you want to be desperate, zero confidence, rejected on a daily basis, poverty stricken, never knowing if you'll ever work again? What is wrong with you? He said, no, I don't want to be an actor. So he's not, and he's doing extremely well by not doing that. Yes, it is true. There is. Don't go into acting if you think it's a secure business.
Oh, I've done it.
I always said that. I've always said that. And if you said, I'm thinking of becoming an actor, I said, don't. And I figure that if they take my word for it, and they don't, they will never have made it. But if they say, I don't care what you say, I'm going to have a go, then you've got a chance. But, if you can be put off by one person saying, don't bother, then you shouldn't bother.
Yeah.
This has been much fun, man. I've really enjoyed talking with you. And, thank you so much for
I've enjoyed talking with you.
Inviting me on the show.
Yeah, I've enjoyed talking with you too, Alan, and God bless you, and I hope your projects, come to fruition.
Yep.
And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much indeed. And keep in touch.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
All right. Okay, bye for now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Alan Shearman. Ain't he a cool dude? Yes, he was, and a very blessed man. I interview lots of blessed people on this podcast because I'm blessed. If you like this video, everyone, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Add me as a friend on Facebook. Join my Tommy Kovac comedian page on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram and all that fun stuff. Well, that's all the time we have this week on Splat from the Past. Until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.